Hello, everyone. Ivana Taylor here, and I want to welcome you to the Monday edition of Bizapalooza Chat. You know, with the year winding down and looking forward into the future, into a brand new year, one of the things that you're probably sitting there thinking to yourself about is, how can I take my passion and express it inside of my business? You know, this is a little bit different than the passion to profit crowd that, but how do you take 2018 and make it the year of following your bliss? Let's say you have an existing business. How do you insert more of your passion into your business? That's going to make you more marketable. It's going to make you more successful. And the answer to that question lies in a book that I've recently received called Rise Up by our guest today, Russ Stoddard. You're going to be so excited to meet him. Let's bring him up into the room. Hi, Russ, and welcome to Bizapalooza Chat.
Hey, it's great to be here today. Thanks.
So, Russ, tell us where you are. You and I were just talking about this a little bit earlier. Where are you chatting from today?
I'm chatting from beautiful Boise, Idaho.
Awesome. And it's a beautiful place to be, home of all great Hallmark Christmas movies.
There you go, or some anyway.
Yeah, right. So, Russ, a lot of times when we have our guests in the show, rather than my going on and on about your bio, what I would really like to know is, why don't you share a little bit of your entrepreneurial journey? Talk a little bit about how you started out and where you are now and what you know for sure.
Oh boy, okay. That's kind of a lengthy list there, Ivana. My first job out of college was working as a rafting guide for a whitewater outfitter here in Idaho. I did that for a number of years, and then I chased a woman down to Boise and got my first real gig at a corporation, CH2M Hill. I worked there for a couple of years and then advanced to work in investor relations and corporate communications for another large and publicly held company. And I got to tell you, I just always had the itch to be an entrepreneur and either succeed or fail on my own. So I jumped overboard from that last job and started Oliver Russell 26 years ago here in Boise, Idaho. Oliver Russell is a brand marketing agency, and what we do in essence is help companies build purpose-driven brands when they have a product, service, or business model that benefits society.
So talk a little bit about the defining moment when you knew that working with purpose-driven businesses, or that having a purpose-driven business is critical, or that this is an area that you wanted to pursue.
Oh, I'll tell you, the defining moment, I guess there has been a seed in me forever as far as this goes, and I've always, expressed it primarily through making contributions to nonprofits through the business. But when it really hit me was about 5-6 years ago. I had a venture-funded startup called Social Good Network, and it existed to create donations and cause marketing campaigns for both nonprofits and corporations. And unfortunately, it failed for lack of second round financing from investors. But I came away from that experience and was just like, you know what? There is something here. The world is changing. I've been able to experience it firsthand, and I completely wheeled Oliver Russell, the agency, around to where we repositioned and focused squarely on serving purpose-driven companies.
Let's dig into exactly what you mean by purpose-driven business. What is that exactly?
Oh, geez, it gets expressed in a number of ways. There's a continuum from companies that say are purely mission-driven to where they are trying to create a product or service that's going to benefit society, but really do not have it inculcated into their corporate mission beyond that, to the far side of, say, like a social enterprise that is actually indoctrinated into its corporate charter the fact that it is actually going to deliver a social or environmental benefit. So there's a very wide continuum there, but I think there they're all influenced by trying to do something above and beyond simply making a financial profit by giving back to the community or changing the world in some larger and more significant way.
Now, you mentioned that there was a trend, and I know there's a trend, and I can tell you, I've told this story before, so if anybody's ever watched any of these things all the way through, they're going to hear me repeat myself. But back in 1995, I was a marketing manager, and there was it was having kids in the community come in and work in different businesses. So to make a long story short, I had invited these kids from the high school to come and help us on a project so they would get to experience marketing and do this direct mail thing and so on and so forth. These kids were about 15 years old back in 1995. And the first question that they asked was, in what ways does this company contribute to the community? And the second question they asked is, well, in what ways does this company contribute to the world? And I was taken at the moment. That was the first time anyone had ever brought in any of that meta view to business. And if you really think about it, I think there was a study that happened many years ago now, maybe more than 10 or 15 years ago, that said for the first time, consumers were making purchasing decisions based on the values that a company stood for. So I've seen nuggets of this purpose-driven business pop up here and there. So can you say a little bit more about that, what your experience has been? Because you mentioned it.
Oh, sure. From the mouth of babes, right? Your experience in 1995, that's pretty impressive. And kind of early on in the movement, I think what's really fueled it is kind of a confluence of events. It's everything from people's dissatisfaction with government and politicians and the ineffective ability to create change there. I think giant monolithic corporations that will basically lay people off at a moment's notice has created kind of this feeling among younger people that, hey, there's got to be a better way, and probably a way to do that is how we not only invest our time, as in like they're going to seek out a job where they can actually make a difference in addition to making a paycheck, but by aligning their values with their pocketbook and spending money with companies that are in sync with their belief structure. And we're seeing that play out increasingly around the country, to the point where people will not only spend on par to make a purchase for a company that they share values with, but they'll actually pay a small premium as well.
And I think that's a fantastic point. And I'm probably jumping all over the place and way ahead. I have a bunch of little questions here, but you mentioned something. Do you think that, okay, I'm going to be extreme for the sake of asking the question, right? Do you think that any small business can become a purpose-driven business, or should become a purpose-driven business?
Oh, I think any can, for sure. And as far as it should, well, I'm a big proponent of it. And I'll tell you the reason why is I think, first of all, you'll derive far more meaning from your venture than simply making a profit. That's not to say that you won't need to make a profit as well and fare well financially. It will also, I think, give you a differentiating point against competition, and it'll just put you one step ahead of others, whether that's in the battle to attract talent to work there and keep people on board longer, or actually be more effective in selling your services or products in the marketplace.
Exactly. Again, I swear to God, I don't live in the past. I swear. One of the things that your book reminded me of was that when I was in I went to a very unique graduate program back in 1990. I went from 94 to 96. And it was like a team cohort thing. And we didn't get grades. We got reviews, right? So this was out in Antioch. But one of the core foundational beliefs of this graduate management program was that doing the right thing and making a profit were not mutually exclusive principles. Because almost like up until then, there had been this belief that you're either a do-gooder company or you're a for-profit company. And this program existed to show us that, and actually it's part of my graduate paper, what you have to do there. I did a whole thing on sustainability as competitive advantage. And basically what we found was that companies who did the right thing, had a mission-driven business. I think another word that is out there, social enterprise. Yep. Those companies were, what was it? Something like 6 times more, am I allowed to say profitable? Found that they returned 6 times more to shareholders, right? Than purely profit-driven companies. So clearly there is some type of advantage to being socially driven.
Oh, sure. Well, when you operate as a good corporate citizen, you minimize risk and you maximize opportunities. I think on any number of fronts, you're forced to make decisions that are sustainable for the long term. And on occasion, that means in the short term, you're going to have to eat it a little bit. And it forces you to be a smarter business person, but it also gets you out of that quarter-to-quarter mentality that public companies have fallen into, where they make decisions based solely on the short term, quarter-to-quarter, rather than what's really in the long-term interest of the company.
So I don't know if I feel like you've already answered this question, but I'm going to ask it a different way. Good. Talk about when you first started thinking about the idea that profits and purposes were necessary for success. I guess maybe I'm asking more about the book, of why you felt the book needed to be written, and like kind of what got you there.
Oh, what got me there? Well, I guess where I really jumped into it up to my eyeballs and beyond was when I became introduced to certified B corporations, which is a movement founded by a nonprofit called B Lab. What you do as a certified B corporation is you go through a very rigorous assessment of your social and environmental impact. And if you hit a minimum threshold, you're certified as a B corporation. And it really opened my eyes to what a socially conscious company is, far beyond simply making donations to nonprofits. And that set us up to change the governance of our business. It set us up to change the way we interact in the community. It changed our workplace and the way we value the people who are the primary resource that generates income here, which are our employees, in a huge way. And I just thought, wow, you know what? It's not that these are mutually exclusive. It's that a strong purpose actually is the engine that can drive profitability. And that profitability, again, is not only financial, but social profit and environmental profit for the community and the world as well.
Exactly. So we keep tottering on needing to sort of make distinctions between, I think we've traditionally thought of purpose-driven businesses as being nonprofits because they sort of have a purpose behind them, whether it's feeding kids or, doing shoes or whatever. But perhaps you can explain to our listeners the difference between a purpose-driven business and a nonprofit, because of this documentation, this certification you were going after.
Oh, sure. Well, I think everybody's familiar with what nonprofits are, so I'll focus on a purpose-driven social enterprise. And the primary difference is that you are competing in the free market as a social enterprise, a for-profit. So that means that you definitely need to deliver a profit based upon selling to clients out there. You can't get contributions and other forms of income. You can't get grants from foundations. You have to rely entirely on earned revenue. That's the way that nonprofits would look at that. And it's interesting to note that there's a new breed of social enterprise that's kind of blossoming in the nonprofit community, where these nonprofits are trying to get further away from what they see as being, unsustainable relying on donations and grants from foundations to where they're actually delivering products and services and selling them in the marketplace.
So can you maybe name some companies that some of us may have heard of that are purpose-driven businesses that we maybe have not known that they were purpose-driven businesses?
Oh, sure. I'll give you a couple of very well-known consumer brands. So Ben & Jerry's ice cream is a purpose-driven business. It's also a certified B Corporation. And then Patagonia, which outdoor adventure lovers everywhere love, is also a purpose-driven business.
One of the things I've written about recently for my newsletter list talked about the power of taking a stand. And when you take a stand for something and, share your values with your customers, it makes marketing a whole lot easier. And that's something that a purpose-driven business has. Can you maybe explain or re-explain, does a purpose-driven business have to be a certified B Corporation? Can someone have a purpose-driven business that's just a regular business? Why would you want to get certified?
Oh, well, you do not have to become certified as a B Corporation to be a purpose-driven business. Absolutely not. I think what it does bring is it brings third-party verification that your actions are actually aligning with your words. It broadens your perspective as to what a purpose-driven business will be through the resources that are made available to you. And one of the big side benefits is you become a member of this community of other B corporations around the world, which I think there are 2,400 now and growing. And it's an amazing tribe that you become a part of, both as far as like a collegial camaraderie sort of aspect, and as well as a resource that you can tap into when you need help in an area.
That is fascinating. Now, so this certified B Corporation, are you sort of, let's say if you are an S Corp and you want to be a certified B Corp, do you leave your S Corpness behind and do this instead?
No, absolutely not. It's the nomenclature is kind of confusing. So, for instance, to become a certified B Corporation is a voluntary election or choice that you make. What people get confused by is the difference between that and a legal benefit corporation, which is where you actually change the company's legal status to that of a legal benefit corporation, which gives you the flexibility to pursue social and environmental outcomes alongside financial profit, as well as the responsibility to deliver public benefit. And that doesn't require that you change your S Corp status or what have you. You still have that as far as tax status goes. It just gives you a different layer as far as protection of your corporate charter to seek social and environmental outcomes.
So how would a business owner know that they maybe should be turning up the volume on their purpose drivenness, maybe even to the point of becoming certified? How would one know that? Are there sort of signs that say, hey, this is a good move for you?
Oh, I always tell people that it needs to come from the heart before it comes from the head. It's really a desire that as a business owner that you want to create a business that actually is better for the world, as in addition to creating a profit for your shareholders. The head part of it comes in that it's actually something that will help you tell a stronger, more meaningful story to your customers, to your workers, to other stakeholders, your suppliers. So it's a good move in that regard, and it forces you to actually look at your business in different ways, not only say on on an item like business travel, for instance. If you can reduce your business travel, you can reduce your carbon footprint, which is good for the environment. If you can do that at the same time, you'll be spending less money on business travel, which will actually go straight to your bottom line. So there are very hard and direct benefits to becoming a B corporation.
This is so fascinating. I have to say, until I read the book, I had no clue. And that surprised me. How long has that been around, Russ?
B Corps have been around just a little bit over 10 years now.
See, if they'd have been around 20 some years ago, I would have learned about them in grad school.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's accelerating as far as the market penetration goes. And in the first 5 years of B Corp certification, there were about 300 B Corps around the world. We were 299 here in Boise at Oliver Russell. In the next 5 years, it increased by double that amount, and it's really moving beyond that to the point where I think there's 2,400 now.
Wow, that's really something. So let's talk a little. Is there anything else you wanted to say about corporate structures? Because you talk a lot about that in the book.
Oh, sure. So benefit corporate structure, I believe it's available in about 33 states now. You can check with your Secretary of State to see if it's in the state in which you do business. There's also another interesting legal structure called L3C, which is the acronym for a low-profit limited liability company. And you can affect that status in, I think, 8 or 9 states. And what that does is requires you to have a very specific charitable purpose while also allowing you to have a modest amount of earnings as well. It's kind of a hybrid nonprofit for-profit status.
One of the things is this, boy, things are just occurring to me in a very interesting way. Remember, I started the show by talking about the passion for profit crowd.
Yeah.
I've been to quite a few, I know a lot of coaches, life coaches, health coaches, psychologists, psychiatrists, and a lot of women, in fact, who are highly, highly educated, have had corporate careers and so on and so forth, but they were moved to make a shift in their life. And many of them have gotten into these coaching businesses and so on and so forth, but they really struggled with the marketing side. And one of the things that these, should I call them guru type folks at these conferences would say is, do you have a hobby or do you have a business? And there was just a lot of focus, obviously, on profit, as there should be, right? Because you're here to run a business.
Right.
But what I hear you talking about and what I got out of the book is that perhaps these people who have made the shift from all profit to a more holistic business process. That's why I was asking you, what should have somewhat if I were one of these types of folks who wanted to help people and wanted to have this type of a business, and should I consider shifting my legal status, and what benefit could I get? That when you said about that limited profit LLC, that
yep.
How does that work? And because I see an opportunity for these folks who want to practice, want to help, want to have a mission purpose driven business, but can't do that the way it is.
Right. Well, I think the reasons to change your legal status, it all depends on what type of company you have. If you have other shareholders, or if you want to have a legacy for your business as one that is purpose driven, then it's imperative that you protect that as far as the legal status of the company goes. What it allows you to do is bake this into your corporate charter in a way that in the future someone will not be able to have a legal beef with you as far as your decision to actually create social profit in the short term that might actually conflict a little bit with financial profit. A really interesting case study in this right now is Etsy, which is the online marketplace for artisans and what have you. They're a certified B corporation. They took venture capital on. They then went public, and because they were not a legal benefit corporation, their shareholders started pressuring them to change the way they do business, kind of overthrew the management there. So they're actually no longer going to be able to be a B corporation because of this. So it's really a way to protect the type of business you want to be if you want to be a social enterprise.
That's really terrific. So now let's kind of migrate a little bit into the conversation about mission statements, because in the book, you say that a purpose statement and a mission statement are related, but not quite the same thing.
Yeah, I do. I always look at the mission statement as being very, very inward focused and kind of old school. It's about your place in the market or what have you. And a purpose statement really is about looking outward to external audiences, your place in the world and the public benefit that you want to create in it. So, for instance, an old school mission statement may have been to deliver products with excellence and be the number one in our marketplace. And I'll give you an example of the purpose statement here at Oliver Russell, and it's to improve the lives of all we touch through meaningful work and the power of social enterprise. So very, very different perspectives there.
And I think it just strikes me that my whole entire life as a marketing person and someone that does like strategic planning with companies, and I always felt that we marketers and strategists are always pushing our clients and our companies towards more purpose because it gives you that specificity of what your brand is all about while giving you a lot of freedom in which to express it. Have you found that to be true?
Oh, absolutely. I found that to be true, and it's very, very interesting. A lot of the drive for the purpose is coming from younger generations, as we said before. But what's interesting is we have a number of clients who've had very successful careers, could be in their 40s to their 50s, and they've jumped overboard from the old way of doing business and have started social enterprises primarily because they want to take their experience, their connections, their resources, and figure out a way to use the for-profit business to create good in the world. Mm.
So make my day and tell me that this is a rising trend. I am like so all about it, right?
Yeah, it's a rising trend. All the research that you see in there is a large body of it out there, from whether it's Cone Communications or Deloitte and other consultancies that are studying this phenomenon. It all points towards more purpose in the workplace. And you see it, I think, in twofold. As I said earlier, it's like pay only goes so far. You can only get so much meaning out of money. That doesn't say money is a bad thing. It's a good thing. It allows us to do a lot of wonderful things in this world, whether that's to send kids to college, whether that's to provide for retirement and family, or at a business, develop the resources so that you can further the professional development of your staff or create change in the world. So it's all moving in that direction as we move up like Maslow's hierarchy there beyond the basic needs. And at a point in time, it's like, hey, I want more than a paycheck. And the way to do that is to have purpose in your business or your career.
And, I think one of the things I'd really like to reiterate is I wouldn't want anyone to think that these are mutually exclusive principles, because as you were talking about having a purpose-driven business and the positive outcomes for that, I got to thinking about, Gallup and their engagement studies, and how often they say that the more engagement you have with your customers, the more engagement you have with your employees, the more profitable you're going to be. And to me, purpose equals inspires engagement.
Oh, absolutely. And you think about engagement with your customers, what that means is you're able to hold on to them longer and be more efficient in your marketing spend to further the relationship with them. And the same thing with employees. It makes it easier to attract employees and it makes it easier to retain them as well. And both of those are powerful for a business as far as minimizing costs and maximizing your opportunities.
Well, that brings us right to one of my questions that I had, which was, let's talk about the employee side of things. What would be the difference between employing for a profit-driven company versus a purpose-driven company?
Well, I think there's a sense in a traditional company that there's something that might be lacking there when you're working just purely with the profit imperative. And I can tell you, just speaking from personal experience at Oliver Russell, some of the ways that it would be different here is that we truly look at employees, and I hate to say this old tried adage as being our number one asset here, but we actually demonstrate it rather than just talk about it. We invest in the professional development. We have a paid maternity and paternity benefits plan here that enables people to take that important time away from work when they have kids. We have a monthly wellness benefit that allows people to spend money on things that are going to make them either physically, mentally, or spiritually more happy. And we do a lot of volunteering here as well. Every month we do a volunteer trip out in the community. And I think it helps foster a closer, more tight-knit team here. And I think it just really brings people a feeling of, it's spiritual in some ways, of just doing more than simply working to make Russ more money. How's that?
That's fantastic. And I'm kind of curious as you were talking, so I'm going to play devil's advocate. I wonder if somebody is thinking this out in the audience. Is this just for tree huggers?
Oh, God, no. Not that there's anything wrong with hugging a tree. I do it on occasion. I think everybody ought to give it a go. Trees are amazing things. I think a lot of the principles that underlie the foundation of purpose are actually very conservative in nature. It's about making efficient use of your resources. It's about effectively investing in your resources. And it's about making short-term decisions that are going to pay long-term benefits. And I can tell you from the community just here in Boise, you have a company like ours, which is fairly progressive. And on the other side of the scale, you have a company like Caprock Financial Investments. They basically manage wealth for individuals. And they're a very, very conservative firm, but they're also a certified B Corporation as well. So it's not just for tree huggers. It's for smart people who want to get more out of their business.
That, it's like I said, it just seems obvious to me, and maybe it's because I've dug into the data and just had that experience. I can't imagine that anyone would not want to be purpose-driven, right? And yet, maybe you can talk a little bit about this, because I think you talk about it in the book. The whole history, I kind of want to go through the timeline, the whole history of how these B Corps developed. What was it that triggered it? And because, like I said, there were purpose-driven organizations before B corporations. How can you explain how that, what triggered that?
Oh, sure. I think once upon a time, while it wasn't called purpose-driven, once upon a time, companies looked at their involvement with employees and communities and other stakeholders differently. And then I think probably in the late 70s and 80s, the shareholder primacy kind of caught into vogue, and Milton Friedman, who is an esteemed economist, kind of posited that the only social responsibility a company had was to make a profit for its shareholders, and that led to a lot of excess and greed. And if you think of the movie Wall Street, Gordon Gekko saying greed is good, well, we all got to see where that went, right? It didn't go very far with a lot of people, and it was awfully short-sighted. So what happened is, I think people started to figure out, geez, how can we actually create a foundation for businesses that was very, very credible and had a framework for defining what a good company is. And that really started to take fruition in about 2004, 2005 with B Lab, which is the nonprofit that created certified B corporations. And they were three guys, the three founders all came out of very successful corporate backgrounds. And I think they found that experience kind of wanting and decided, hey, let's figure out a way to make a new type of company.
Exactly. And I got to thinking as you were talking, and as I was going through the book, I got to thinking that, because I think I had asked you this earlier, like if you're just running a regular business, right, there you are. But like deep inside yourself, you do have a social side. You have a purpose. You have some social responsibility that you're committed to as a business. Would becoming a certified B Corporation sort of like help put a structure in place to have you fulfill on that vision? Because otherwise you would just be left to your own devices, is what I'm thinking.
Oh, absolutely. I'd say that's the number one benefit of becoming a certified B Corporation is the foundation that it gives. You know, some awfully smart people have spent a lot of time figuring out what aspects there are to being a socially responsible company. So you can go into it thinking you understand what a socially responsible company is, but B Corp really adds a lot of texture and dynamics to it. So that was the most helpful thing for us, which is we went into it. First time we actually didn't pass certification, which was shocking to me. I always thought we were a pretty good company, but it was also reassuring as well because I understood that, hey, guess what? This is no gimme. This is no layup. So we went back, we certified, and then we actually used the certification process every 2 years to figure out how can we become an even better company and pick several items that we can work on over the course of a couple of years to improve ourselves.
This so reminds me, I spent a career in manufacturing, and this entire thing reminds me very much of being ISO certified, right? You've got a structure, you have guidelines, you get to choose how it goes, but you just have to follow your structure.
Yeah, that's a very apt comparison. It is a structure, and of course, if you're trying to figure out what it is to be purpose-driven business, you can kind of flounder around out there. There's so many different terms for it, whether it's social enterprise, purpose-driven, socially conscious, etc. And really what this does as far as B Corp goes is it gives you a fantastic structure that educates you about it and then gives you the ability to improve as far as your operations go.
So what are the minimal requirements to becoming a certified B Corporation?
Oh, well, you know, it's interesting. They do it on a scoring basis. So you could conceivably have a maximum score of 200 as a B Corp, and it requires a score of just 80 to actually certify as a B Corp. And there are any number of different ways that you might be able to do that. I'd say there's probably about 200 questions or so that you have to respond to in the certification process. And any number of different combinations of those would allow you to certify. So it recognizes that everybody has different strengths and different ways they want to pursue social responsibility, whether that's in the community, whether that's in the governance, whether that's in their stakeholder relations and supply chain or what have you.
Now, do you have to be sort of a big company with infrastructure? Can solopreneurs become B?
Oh, absolutely. You can be a solopreneur. Yeah, it's, you know, the biggest company, I would say probably Patagonia might be about the largest company as far as sales go. Unilever, which is the a big Europe conglomerate, is also looking at possibly becoming a certified B corporation. But for the most part, there are many, many small businesses, and they probably make up the majority of certified B Corps. So, for instance, Oliver Russell, we have 12 people who work here, not all that big. I've got friends and associates who might have onesies, twosies, threes as far as the employees in their firm. So it's definitely cut out for solopreneurs and small businesses.
How much does it cost?
Oh, how much does it cost? They have a sliding scale. So I believe, well, let me see. The sliding scale for us, we're at, I believe, $1,000 each year, which is pretty easy. I think the entry level is $500, and that I think is determined upon your yearly revenues.
Well, that's really affordable.
Yeah.
That is really affordable. I mean, I'm actually sitting there thinking that once you become certified, is that something that you promote? Like you have it on your website, you have it whatever, so that people can see, because that would be a reason for them to choose you, wouldn't it?
Oh, sure it is. You know, I look at it more than anything. I just want to spread the word about social enterprise. So it makes it very, very easy to be an advocate for that. And of course, people are curious because it's still, while it is a movement, it's still at a very early point in its infancy. It engenders much curiosity and questions, which then, of course, opens the door for you to tell a story of differentiation about your business and the change you're trying to make in the world.
So why did you write the book? I know, I thought it was like really specific. It had a lot of legal stuff in there and it had a little bit of your story, but what was your intention behind it?
Oh, you know, I had a couple of really smart women kick me in the butt over a number of years, long enough that I finally wrote it. They basically told me, hey, you need to write the book on this because you've got all that knowledge from living it in the hard streets of social enterprise, and you should be sharing it with the world. So I guess the first reason is to just hopefully help propel the movement, make it easier for other business people to learn about being a purpose-driven business. And then beyond that, I guess I hope that it will help further our own business at Oliver Russell, as well as we become further recognized as experts in the space.
So would you say that your purpose with the book, I mean, do you believe that more small business owners should be B corporations certified?
I absolutely do. And, you know, it's kind of easy for most people to identify with it right now. If you look at the shape of the world, if you look at what's going on in Washington, D.C. and around the world, people feel somewhat helpless as far as their ability to effect greater change. And I think this is a fantastic way on a very personal and professional level to be able to create the change that you want to see in the world and not rely on others.
Exactly. And it really sounds that, you know, like I said, since you and I are talking, it's funny, I didn't really get that just by purely reading the book. So I'm glad we're chatting, because one of the things that's really stood out for me in this conversation is that if you are a small business that has a purpose, a higher purpose, that you're in business with a higher purpose, and you've been wondering how to express that purpose in a better way, in a stronger way or whatever, then being a certified B corporation would give you that structure. At least like that's what I found when we did the ISO certification. It's terrible. It's expensive. It's a pain. It's hard, right? Yeah. But it gives you that structure. So once you're done with the structure, it's like your creativity is unleashed. It's almost counterintuitive.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you talked about the ISO certification. You said, I think it's hard. It's a big pain. Well, that ports directly over to being a small business. You know, it's hard. Only a small business person knows exactly how hard it is to make payroll every 2 weeks, how to keep the lights on, how to go from one year to the next, kind of being scrappy in the marketplace. And having a purpose, wow, on some of those tough, dark days, it makes all the difference in the world as far as enabling you to get up and open the door the next day and have at it again.
So true. So what is it that you see as we kind of start wrapping up here? What is it that you see as a trend? What tips would you give to small business owners who are kind of curious about enhancing the purpose in their business?
Oh, well, I guess self-servingly, I'd say get yourself a copy of my book, Rise Up, and that is an excellent primer. Beyond that, go on the web, check out bcorporation.net. You can go look at the Benefit Corporation statutes, and just do a little searching around purpose-driven, and you'll see that there is a large community out there, in particular of customers who are looking for and waiting for businesses like yours to express similar values so that they can trade business with you.
I think that's a great tip. And I would definitely say that, or maybe I should ask you, if you are a business that is committed to a higher purpose, right? But you've been struggling with your marketing. Like, you don't know how to communicate that purpose, and you don't know how to connect to the right people who would share that purpose with you. Would doing this kind of work help you out in that?
I think so. And, I think the real difference is, instead of just simply telling a story, you actually become the story, and other people will actually tell that for you. People love higher purpose brands and companies, and they have a deep bond for them. So it enables you to actually have more effective storytelling, because others will tell your story for you.
You are making my head swim with possibilities, because it had I don't even know what that is. What do you think that is, Russ, right? Like, you read something, I read it, I looked at it.
Yeah.
I just wasn't affected by it the way I'm affected now. I see so many more possibilities. I don't even know what to say other than read the book. Okay, read the book, right? I read the book. It wouldn't, unless I was talking to you. I mean, what am I trying to say here? I just think that I know I'm flabbergasted. I was sitting there. What's happened is, as you were talking, I was sitting there thinking about all of my corporate brands that I work with, and what a competitive advantage something like this would be if you would take it on.
Oh, it's a huge competitive advantage from so many different standpoints. And of course, I think people look at it and either think it's too much work, or they think maybe there's too much risk involved with that. But, being a strong and powerful brand requires shouldering some risk, standing out in a way that's incredibly different. And I think people will find, in particular, when they move to purpose, that they'll be rewarded time and time again for the investment they make in it.
That's outstanding. So, Russell, tell us where they can find this book, and what other goodies have you got?
Oh, gosh, you can find this book on Amazon, of course. You can also find it on my website, russstoddard.com. And other goodies, oh, geez, I don't know what you have in mind.
Well, I know that we're running a promotional thing with the book, but doesn't it have a website too?
Oh, yeah. It's the website is, actually, the website is Russ Stoddard. It's an author website. And
right.
There's I believe, a 40% discount right now.
Exactly. No, it's really, really fantastic. What would you say to a company that says, yeah, this is just nice thing to talk about. Why would we want to do this? So what would you say to someone who wants to convince a client or an employer to do something like this? What tips would you give them about how to create fans and get enrollment around this idea?
Oh, that's an easy one for me. I'm a strong believer that this will be the way business is conducted in the not so distant future. And it's like, do you want to be ahead of the curve and ahead of your competition, or not? Do you want to be able to attract the best and brightest? Do you want to be able to keep your people from fishing around for new jobs constantly? Do you want to actually have the strongest brand advocates in the world who will flock to your brand? And ultimately, do you really want to stand for something in your professional life? I would kind of say all of the above.
That's awesome. Awesome. We are doing so great. We have had so many great people on this chat. Folks are like really, really interested in this. I hate to even ask this, right? Because we're supposed to be talking about, just rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah.
But do you have any maybe tips or things to look out for? As, what are some challenges that companies who are thinking about doing this might run into, and how should they overcome them?
Oh, I think the number one concern is that your words and your intentions don't add up to your actions, and you have no way to measure and accurately communicate that you are living to a higher purpose. I'd say that's the number one right there. And whether it's a shopper, a customer, a prospective employee, they all have a pretty acute sniffer for BS. So if you don't live up to it in ways that are demonstrable, then you stand to really hurt your business.
So in other words, don't do it if you're only doing it for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? It really, you can't see this. This is where, when I sort of went into my head there a second ago, as I was thinking about all my amazing brands and clients that could really benefit from this. One of the things that also occurs to me is that some companies and some businesses just aren't created from purpose. Right? I mean, I don't know, do you have clients like this? And I don't even know that you would, but I have lots of folks who I know that look out, they see a trend or they see an opportunity, and a couple guys get together over some drinks and they're like, wow, have you seen this opportunity? There's going to be some serious growth there. Let's start a business. And they do.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm not going to hash on that necessarily. That's an entrepreneur who sees a opportunity in the marketplace. I think what I would say is there's a different way of going about that and still seizing that opportunity. And that's by putting purpose behind the profit that you intend to make.
What do you say to someone like, okay, so let's just take this. So you got the two guys who started this business based on this great opportunity, right? And they're really struggling. I get a lot of these folks. So this is like an amalgam of several clients, right? They're really struggling. And the reason that they're struggling is they don't have a story to tell people. They just don't have a story. What they have is this opportunity.
Right.
And and they would say, well, being this purpose-driven business is an opportunity. How do you work with people on helping them uncover their purpose? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Unless their purpose is just to take advantage of an opportunity and make lots of money. And some of them say exactly that.
Oh, yeah, sure we do. And ours fall largely into the latter company. There are people who want to use the for-profit imperative to actually make a change in the world, and we help them kind of suss out the purpose around that. I think as far as your initial, model of the two guys who just want to figure out this financial opportunity, I think that's I think it's getting to the point where people see straight through that, and it's a hollow and kind of wanting proposition. And while it might have a short-term bang, beyond that, it's going to be a hard time carrying it forward. It's a little bit what I see as the old version of cause marketing, where a company decides it will do some good if a customer will actually buy their products. And that one's pretty transparent, that really what the company cares about is figuring out a way to get you to buy its products and not what the cause actually is. That's why there's been a move to a higher purpose where cause is integrated into the company itself.
Do you think that, this is such a broad generalization, I think that businesses who are founded for purely opportunistic reasons, whatever, example A,
Mm-hmm.
I think they're really going to struggle. They could be successful. They could sell and be okay. But I think at one point they themselves recognize that they're not getting that connection with the customer. They can't connect on social. They can't connect on email. They can't connect. And the reason they can't connect is that customers are hungry for a story. They're hungry for more.
Oh, you bet. Anybody who's tried to build a social following these days as a company understands the challenges there. It is so competitive and hard to get people's attention and engagement. And part of that is because people just don't care about companies to a large degree anymore. They care about initiatives, they care about values, and they want to see those expressed. And when they do, they'll align themselves there. And if they don't, then sayonara, they don't care.
So I guess that's the message for all businesses, right? Whether you become a certified B Corporation or whether you're just going along your own way, you're really not going to get away from the fact that you need to have a higher purpose in your business. You need to have a story. You need to have a way to connect with customers.
Yeah, I think the bar to entry is a decent product or service, and then above and beyond that, it's got to be differentiated. And one of the best ways to do that is through purpose.
Well, with that, I don't think I could have said anything better myself. Thank you all for being here for another fun session of Bizapalooza Chat. Today we talked about purpose-driven businesses and how to make your business purpose-driven. Definitely grab yourself a copy of Rise Up by Russ Stoddard. Russ, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, hey, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me.